Roberto Cofresí y Ramírez de Arellano, better known as El Pirata Cofresí, was a pirate from Puerto Rico. Despite his birth into a noble family, the political and economic difficulties faced by the island as a colony of the Spanish Empire during the late 18th and early 19th centuries meant that his household was poor. Cofresí worked at sea from an early age. Although this familiarized him with the region's geography, it provided only a modest salary. He eventually decided to abandon a sailor's life, becoming a pirate, despite previous links to land-based criminal activities. The reason for Cofresí's change of vocation is unknown. Historians speculate that he may have worked as a privateer aboard El Scipion, owned by one of his cousins. The timing of this decision was crucial in establishing him as the dominant Caribbean pirate of the era. Cofresí began his new career in early 1823, filling a role vacant in the Spanish Main since the death of Jean Lafitte, and was the last major target of West Indies anti-piracy operations. While piracy was heavily monitored and most pirates were rarely successful, Cofresí was confirmed to have plundered at least 8 vessels and has been credited with over 70 captures. At the height of his career, he evaded capture by vessels from Spain, Gran Colombia, United Kingdom, Denmark, France and the United States. Cofresí preferred to outrun his pursuers, but his flotilla engaged the West Indies squadron twice, attacking the schooners Us Grampus and Us Beagle. Cofresí commanded several small draft vessels, the best known a fast 6-gun sloop named Anne, and demonstrated a preference for speed and maneuverability over firepower. He manned them with small, rotating crews, which most contemporary documents and accounts numbered 10 to 20 in size. Although most crew members were recruited locally, men from the other Antilles, Central America and expatriate Europeans occasionally joined the pirates. Unlike his predecessors, Cofresí is not known to have imposed a pirate code on his crew. His leadership was enhanced by an audacious personality, a trait acknowledged even by his pursuers. According to 19th-century reports, he had a rule of engagement that when a vessel was captured, only those willing to join his crew were permitted to live. Cofresí's influence extended to a large number of civil informants and associates, forming a network which took 14 years after his death to fully dismantle. Despite never confessing to a murder, he reportedly boasted about his crimes. The number of people who died as a result of his pillaging ranged from 300 to 400, mostly foreigners. Cofresí proved too much for local authorities who, unable to contain him themselves, accepted international help to capture the pirate. Spain created an alliance with the West Indies Squadron and the Danish government of St. Thomas. On March 5, 1825, the alliance set a trap which forced Anne into a naval battle. After 45 minutes, Cofresí abandoned his ship and escaped overland. He was recognized by a local resident who ambushed and injured him. Cofresí was captured and imprisoned, making a last unsuccessful attempt to escape by trying to bribe an official with part of a hidden stash. The pirates were sent to San Juan, Puerto Rico, where a brief military tribunal found them guilty and sentenced them to death. On March 29, 1825, Cofresí and most of his crew were executed by firing squad. The pirate inspired stories and myths after his death, most emphasizing a Robin Hood-like steal from the rich, give to the poor philosophy which became associated with him. In poetry and oral tradition, this portrayal has evolved into legend, commonly accepted as fact in Puerto Rico and throughout the West Indies. A subset of these claims that Cofresí became part of the Puerto Rican independence movement and other secessionist initiatives, including Simon Bolivar's campaign against Spain. Historic and mythical accounts of his life have inspired songs, poems, plays, books and films. In Puerto Rico, caves, beaches and other alleged hideouts or locations of buried treasure have been named after Cofresí, and a resort town near Puerto Plata in the Dominican Republic is named for him. Early years. Lineage. In 1945, historian Enrique Ramírez Brau speculated that Cofresí may have had Jewish ancestry, a theory held by David Questa, and historian Ursula Acosta held that the name Kupferstein may have been chosen by his family when the 18th-century European Jewish population adopted surnames. The theory was later discarded when the research uncovered a complete family tree prepared by Cofresí's cousin, Luigi de Jenna, indicating that the name was spelled Kupferstein. Originally from Prague, Cofresí paternal patriarch Cristoforo Kupferstein received a recognition and coat of arms from Ferdinand I of Austria in December 1549 and eventually moved to Trieste. His last name was probably adapted from the town of Kufstein. After its arrival, the family became one of Trieste's early settlers. Cristoforo's son Felice was recognized as a noble in 1620, becoming Edler von Kupferstein. The family gained prestige and became one of the city's wealthiest, with the next generation receiving the best possible education and marrying into other influential families. Cofresí's grandfather Giovanni Stanislao Kupferstein held several offices in the police, military and municipal administration. According to Acosta, Cofresí's father Francesco received a Laytonschule education and left at age 19 for Frankfurt. In Frankfurt he mingled with influential figures such as Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, returning to Trieste 2 years later. As a cosmopolitan, mercantile city, Trieste was a probable hub of illicit trade, and Francesco was forced to leave after he killed Josephus Stefani on July 31, 1778. Although Stefani's death is commonly attributed to a duel, given their acquaintanceship it may have been related to illegal activity. Francesco's name and those of 4 sailors soon became linked to the murder. Convicted in absentia, the fugitive remained in touch with his family. Francesco went to Barcelona, reportedly learning Spanish there. By 1784 he had settled in Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico, a harbor town in the municipality of San Germán, where he was accepted by the local aristocracy with the Spanish honorific Don. Francesco's name was Hispanicized to Francisco Cofresí, which was easier for his neighbors to pronounce. Since he was linked to illegal commerce in his homeland, he probably relocated to Cabo Rojo for strategic reasons. Its harbor was far from San Juan, the capital. Francisco soon met Maria Germana Ramírez de Arellano, and they married. His wife was born to Clemente Ramírez de Arellano y del Toro, a noble and first cousin of town founder Nicolas Ramírez de Arellano. Her family, descended from the aristocracy of Navarre, owned a significant amount of land in Cabo Rojo. After the marriage the couple settled in El Tujao, near the coast. Francisco's father Giovanni died in 1789, and a petition pardoning him for Stefani's murder a decade before was granted 2 years later. However, no evidence exists that Francisco ever returned to the city. Penniless nobleman and marauder, the Latin American Wars of Independence had repercussions in Puerto Rico due to widespread privateering and other naval warfare. Maritime commerce suffered heavily. Cabo Rojo was among the municipalities affected most, with its ports at a virtual standstill. African slaves took to the sea in an attempt at freedom. Merchants were assessed higher taxes and harassed by foreigners. Under these conditions, Cofresí was born to Francisco and Maria Germana. The youngest of 4 children, he had 1 sister and 2 brothers. Cofresí was baptized into the Roman Catholic Church by José de Roxas, the first priest in Cabo Rojo, when he was 15 days old. Maria died when Cofresí was 4 years old, and an aunt assumed his upbringing. Francisco then began a relationship with Maria Sanabria, the mother of his last child Julian. A Don by birth, Cofresí's education was above average, since there is no evidence of a school in Cabo Rojo at the time. Francisco may have educated his children or hired a tutor. The Cofresis, raised in a multicultural environment, probably knew Dutch and Italian. In November 1814 Francisco died, leaving a modest estate. Roberto was probably homeless, with no income. On January 14, 1815, 3 months after his father's death, Cofresí married Juana Kratoff in San Miguel Archangel Parish, Cabo Rojo. Contemporary documents are unclear about her birthplace, although it is also listed as Curaçao. She was probably born in Cabo Rojo to Dutch parents. After the marriage, the couple moved to a residence bought for 50 pesos by Kratoff's father, Geraldo. Months later, Cofresí's father-in-law lost his humble home in a fire, plunging the family into debt. 3 years after his marriage, Cofresí owned no property and lived with his mother-in-law, Ana Cordelia. He established ties with residents of San Germán, including his brothers-in-law, the wealthy merchant Don Jacobo Ufre and Don Manuel Ufre. The couple struggled to begin a family of their own, conceiving 2 sons who died soon after birth. Although he belonged to a prestigious family, Cofresí was not wealthy. In 1818 he paid 17 maravedis in taxes, spending most of his time at sea in earning a low wage. According to historian Walter Cardona Bonet, Cofresí probably worked in a number of fishing corrals in Boquerón Bay. The corrals belonged to Cristobal Pabon de Villa, a friend of municipal port captain José Mendoza. This connection is believed to have later protected Cofresí, since Mendoza was godfather to several of his brother Juan Francisco's children. The following year he first appeared on a government registry as a sailor, and there is no evidence linking him to any other jobs in Cabo Rojo. Although Cofresí's brothers were maritime merchants and sailed a boat, the Avispa, he probably worked as an able fisherman. On December 28, 1819, Cofresí was registered on the Ramona, ferrying goods between the southern municipalities. In addition, her frequent voyages to the Mona Passage and Cofresí's recognition by local residents indicate that he occasionally accompanied the Avispa that year. Cofresí and Juana lived in Barrio del Pueblo and paid higher taxes than the previous year, 5 reals. Political changes in Spain affected Puerto Rico's stability during the first 2 decades of the 19th century. Europeans and refugees from the American colonies began arriving after the Royal Decree of Graces of 1815, changing the archipelago's economic and political environments. With strategic acquisitions, the new arrivals triggered a rise in prices. Food distribution was inefficient, particularly in non-agricultural areas. Unmotivated and desperate, the local population drifted toward crime and dissipation. By 1816, Governor Salvador Meléndez Bruna shifted responsibility for law enforcement from the Captaincy General of Puerto Rico to the mayors. Driven by hunger and poverty, highway robbers continued to roam southern and central Puerto Rico. In 1817, wealthy San Germán residents requested help with the criminals who were invading houses and shops. The following year, Meléndez established a high-security prison at El Arsenal in San Juan. During the next few years, the governor transferred repeat offenders to San Juan. Cabo Rojo, with its high crime rate, also dealt with civil strife, inefficient law enforcement and corrupt officials. While he was still a Don, Cofresí led a criminal gang in San German which stole cattle, food and crops. He was linked to an organization operating near the Hormigas barrio since at least 1818 and to another nobleman, Juan Geraldo Bay. Among Cofresí's associates were Juan de los Reyes, José Cartagena and Francisco Ramos, and the criminals continued to thrive in 1820. The situation worsened with the arrival of unauthorized street vendors from nearby municipalities, who were soon robbed. A series of storms and droughts drove residents away from Cabo Rojo, worsening the already poor economy. Authorities retrained the unemployed and underemployed as night watchmen. The regional harvest was destroyed by a September 28, 1820 hurricane, triggering its largest crime wave to date. Newly appointed Puerto Rican Governor Gonzalo Arostegui Herrera immediately ordered Lieutenant Antonio Ordonez to round up as many criminals as possible. On November 22, 1820, a group of 15 men from Cabo Rojo participated in the highway robbery of Francisco de Rivera, Nicolas Valde and Francisco Lamboy on the outskirts of Yoko. Cofresí is believed to have been involved in this incident because of its timing and the criminals linked to an area headed by his friend, Cristobal Pabon de Villa. The incident sparked an uproar in towns throughout the region, and convinced the governor that the authorities were conspiring with the criminals. Among measures taken by Arostegui were a mayoral election in Cabo Rojo and an investigation of the former mayor. The incoming mayor was ordered to control crime in the region, an unrealistic demand with the resources at his disposal. Bernardo Pabon de Villa, a friend of Cofresí and relative of Cristobal, was assigned to prosecute the Yoko incident. Bernardo reportedly protected the accused and argued against pursuing the case, saying that according to private confidences, they were fleeing to the United States. Other initiatives to capture highway robbers in Cabo Rojo were more successful, resulting in over a dozen arrests. Among them was the nobleman Bay, who was charged with murder. Known as El Holande, Bay testified that Cofresí led a criminal gang. Cofresí's primary collaborators were the Ramírez de Arellano family, who prevented his capture as Cabo Rojo's founding family with high positions in politics and law enforcement. The central government issued wanted posters for Cofresí, and in July 1821 he and the rest of his gang were captured. Bay escaped, becoming a fugitive. Cofresí and his men were tried in San German's courthouse, where the connection to several crimes was proven. On August 17, 1821, Juana gave birth to their only daughter, Bernardina. Due to his noble status, Cofresí probably received a pass for the birth and took the opportunity to escape. In alternative theories, he broke out and was released on parole. While Cofresí was a fugitive, Bernardo Pabon de Villa was Bernardina's godfather and Felicita Asensio her godmother. On December 4, 1821, a wanted poster was circulated by San German Mayor Pascasio Cardona. There is little documentation of Cofresí's whereabouts in 1822. Historians have suggested that he exploited his upper-class connections to remain concealed. The Ramírez de Arellano family held most regional public offices, and their influence extended beyond the region. Other wealthy families, including the Bays, had similarly protected the relatives, and Cofresí may have hidden in plain sight due to the inertia of Cabo Rojo authorities. When he became a wanted man, he moved Juana and Ana to her brother's houses and would visit in secret. Juana also visited him at his headquarters at Pedernales. It is unknown how far Cofresí traveled during this time. but he had associates on the East Coast and may have taken advantage of Eastern migration from Cabo Rojo. Although he may have been captured and imprisoned in San Juan, he does not appear in contemporary records. However, Cofresi's associates Juan El Indio de los Reyes, Francisco Ramos and José Pepe Cartagena were released only months before his recorded reappearance.